Thank you, John. Thank you. Thanks for everybody for coming now. So I'll take you back to Raleigh. This is the picture of the State Government Center from a drone there downtown. So me and Jeff, this is Jeff here, work for the North Carolina State Property Office. So here's a little bit of background of what the slideshow is about. And so me and Jeff have been in this industry for a long time. I'm an NC State grad, and he's a Wisconsin Central grad. So who is the State Property Office? So we buy, sell, and lease property for all state agencies within the state of North Carolina. We buy, there's a lot of parks property, so a lot of property for wildlife management, and of course we lease a lot of property. So here's some numbers. So almost 12,000 buildings, about 5 million net square feet of lease space. That equates to about $78 million a year. About 1.1 million acres owned. About 3 million square feet, net square feet of office storage space just in the State Government Center. So here's our project needs and objectives. So, of course, being GIS people, we want to incorporate space and asset data into one data set, an indoor map, and replace the space planning database, which you'll see a picture of in a few minutes. So there's always a big discrepancy, right, between text data and what the floor plan shows sometimes. Yeah, so here's where we started with some text data and an AutoCAD drawing. So we have our own facility management folks within the State Government Center. So they do improvements within these state buildings, but keeping up with those improvements and where people are is not easy. So we contracted with Patrick Engineering, who introduced a solution to us with Cartograph, which is now an OpenGov company, but this is Cartograph's solution. Used to be called Envision, but it's Cartograph FMS now. And we also wanted to port this data to ArcGIS Indoors. And one of the other vendors, of course, I didn't mention was Indoor View, which you'll see in a minute, some of the data that they collected here. So our legislators are really interested in space utilization. They think that the state's underutilizing a lot of space, and of course the space in buildings is very expensive, especially in the downtown Raleigh area. So we needed to combine some CAD data and text data so we could verify some information as far as space utilization goes. So the data acquisition process began with our vendor Indoor View, they're out of California. And so they took panoramic images of all the space within 2 of the larger buildings in downtown Raleigh using their geocam. It's actually not as nice as the one they have in the other room there. This was a handheld one. So they walked through every space that there was in the building and took pictures, 3-dimensional pictures there. And folks at Cartograph and Patrick integrated data into FMS and to ArcGIS Indoors. So I'll let Jeff take over with a little ArcGIS Indoors demo here.
Hello, everyone. Let's see.
Escape probably. I could pull the part.
So interface is you have browse right here on the top right. You can select any buildings you have in your data, and you can also zoom in the data geospatially. You have to zoom in over here, zoom out. You have base layers, map gallery you can add in, imagery, streets, topo. Let's see. Yeah, so the layers list of everything, all the attributes, and you can turn these off and on by clicking on them. It's a default map view, and you have your legend for everything that's going to be displayed on your map on indoors. So office type, restroom, storage, janitor closet, and also okay, later. It's just like the building, and it zooms in. And you can select the floor right here on the top right, level 5, and then zoom in. You can click on the building, or I mean, I'm sorry, the room, and it will give you all the attribute types you have in. So it's a cubicle, office, elevator, etc. You can also share this information with the share button right here. You can send it by email, or on the bottom right here, you have the get this information on mobile, and it pops up a QR code to scan with your smartphone camera. Let's see. What's that?
Imagery.
Oh yeah. So click on more, and you go to 360 imagery. So you just pan around, and then also walk it through just like Google Street View. Or you can zoom into the map over on the bottom right and just click any area to see it, the space. And then, let's see, there's a measure tool here. And you can also add layers in here, also floor plans or space polygons. And also it has attributes for like, it shows the schematics so you can see the doors and which way they swing in and out.
Yeah, so this is the sample of the data that Indoor View took with their geocam there. So they walked through each door there. So ArcGIS Indoors also has a space planner app they have where you can plan out your space. And you can assign people or departments, divisions to that space. I guess the good thing is we were able to collect a lot of data during COVID, so most of the buildings were vacant, which has turned out well for us. So what can you do with all that kind of data? So you can do make some cool dashboards and show the legislators statistics and buildings, and you can move people around. So actually, about this past session, about 3 months ago or 4 months ago, legislators passed a new piece of legislation. They want to demolish our building, which is a large office building downtown. And they want us to move everybody out of our building and shuffle everybody into the public education building, which is a big one on the, you saw a while ago. And they asked some of the agencies to reduce their space by up to 50%. So if you can imagine, 50% state government buildings full of people, paper, lots of paper. And so they asked them to reduce their footprint by June 30th of this year. But so this data is definitely coming in handy this year for us to do planning for things like that. So also another cool thing you can do. So other people in our department, it includes state construction office, state parking office, and facility management. And our HR folks are in charge of recharging fire hydrants, fire extinguishers. But so we went in there. They helped geolocate all the fire extinguishers in the building and placed them on a floor plan for them to help them visualize where their extinguishers are and help maintain those over the years. I think that's about it. Questions?
Got time for questions, Jeff? So what commitment do you have for future maintenance of data? So you've got a fixed point in time here, but then, facilities move people around, or they're repainting, or they're moving walls. What's the commitment there to be able to capture this update?
What's the commitment or on our part? Yeah, so. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So we're in charge of making those changes and keeping up with it, tracking those changes, where people are, and communicate. We're communicating, of course, with the facility management and the state construction folks, make sure we're kept abreast of those changes. Because actually, the public education building, because they're going to be moving so many people, they're actually going to redesign some of it during that process, potentially redesign it, because there's actually a big cafeteria in there that they're not going to use anymore probably, and they want to, yeah. So we have to keep up with those changes and propose those changes and propose, budgetary requirements for collecting that data again, and but yeah, it's a big deal, and
I think you get charged by a single located piece, so
Yeah.
using the as a starting point, right, for indoors. Indoors comes with tools that help you manage your another area.
yeah, and we're required to track where people were and where they've gone to. The state controller's office tracks those numbers for some purpose. I'm not sure why, but they ask us those numbers every year. But yeah, it's a big commitment to keep track of those things, and we definitely want to establish workflows with those other divisions. Most of them, of course, within our department, about how to keep everybody abreast of those things. And of course, this is being recorded. Upper management makes most of the decisions, right? We just have to collect data and make changes to data sets and help them make the right decisions, during this process. So it's a huge, it's so timely that this, of course, this legislation wasn't good legislation, but it's timely. about moving people, especially when we ourselves have to move. And so there's some, it's a major process for us for that, make that happen, and to keep track of those changes. And, but it's good selling point for this.
Was the primary goal of your presenter to help with data collection or contract to do some data collection or to help base technology and stuff?
All the above, yeah, they did everything. Oh, yeah. They subcontracted the vendor, collected data, and so they gave us Cartograph FMS, introduced that as a solution, and ArcGIS Indoors, of course, was a no-brainer. Because ArcGIS Indoors just gave us additional flexibility outside of Cartograph to use the data throughout the department for other uses. And good planning tool, yeah. No. It was just the two big ones downtown, just two big ones. And so we picked those two because those two buildings are where most people are moved in and out of. There's a lot of movement, people in those two buildings. And this is more of like a pilot project and to sell it to the decision makers for additional funding for help gather additional data. So it's just the beginning. I don't know if you saw my talk earlier, or the keynote speaker for lunch there that you have to learn how to give your elevator talk or speech, and legislators are sometimes hard to convince about what the needs are and tools, what's available, technology available, and how they can use to help state government utilize space better. And the whole, of course, the whole telework thing throws numbers off a little bit too. You use the app for hoteling and things like that too, which I didn't mention before. But yeah, it's a very good tool. We'd love to use it on all our larger office buildings and our lease space too. There's a lot of movement in lease space. Of course, there's leases all across North Carolina, and there's a couple out of state that we lease, but there's a lot of space out there that it's hard to keep track of where people are and what's being utilized.
I was curious, I think one of you got some 3D buttons up there.
Oh.
You got 3D configured. And do you have plans for the future to expand your use of indoors and do like an out?
What you pointed out, Charlie?
Oh,
Yeah, the 3D, yeah. So, like you said something, Charlie, about 3D. Skip that one altogether. And the other question?
Do you guys have plans to use the routing features of indoors?
Yeah. You can draw it. Yeah, so yeah, we plan on using the routing features. One of the coolest public safety, actually it was in public safety demonstration we saw, they were using it to for the example the guy used was if it's a firing building, if you have routing capabilities, then 3D, if you have the app in your hand, you can route yourself out of the building. I don't know if anybody's ever been to a public education building, but it's a maze once you get in there. Yeah, yeah, you gotta turn on all floors, yeah. But yeah, it's really three-dimensional data set.
You guys started working on that, you started ArcGIS tool, wraps all that together for you. If you want to do like some maps and work with the space where you can develop or create route on network. It does. It does. They've made it quite affordable. Used to be price per square foot, now it's $5,000 a year.
There are three levels of it, but, depending on if you want to get into kiosks, then, we can talk more about that. I don't need the official listing of the contract.
Right.
It's just updated.
There really is a, go ahead.
Just a follow-on, photography. You all have, the acquiring, update that or see, need every 2 years to come back.
Yeah, it's a good question. So actually, the indoor view, the vendor said they're actually gonna license their cat geocam in the future, at least so we can lease it out or use another solution to do the same thing. But yeah.
Some good capability there too, so we don't want to do a certain section. These are like intelligent 360 scans, so the images you can kind of have a start stop point and what's in that chain. Right. And I'll be quite honest with you, John, just because we worked together for a long time. The price now, doing scans, the scans are cool, right? You get 360 and it's geographically aware. But the nice thing is if you have no app and you have no GIS, they can generate the CAD and the GIS directly from you. It's not very, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Starting from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd looked at it about 10 years ago. It was way off the chain, but now it's affordable.
John and I, we talked about that over 10 years.
Probably 10 years, over 10 years.
And that was when they were rolling the little trucks, little buggies around, and now
Yeah.
they're like a tiny camera on a pole, and they go as speed as you walk.
Yeah.
So you can do hundreds of thousands of square feet in a matter of hours.
Yeah, one of the vendors in the room there had one yesterday. What his actually attached to your body, which is always much easier. But
Good technology going on over here. Any other questions, you guys? This is awesome, John. Thank you so much.
thank you.